The Galactic Assembly prided itself on ceremony. Everything had a ritual: how wars were declared, how planets were claimed, how species were erased with polite legal language and applause afterward. Even executions were choreographed, wrapped in tradition so old no one remembered who'd invented it. Silence before judgment. Silence during sentence. Silence when the condemned finally understood how small they were. Ambassador Elias Rourke stood in that silence, and ruined it by clearing his throat. The sound echoed far too loudly through the chamber. Thousands of delegates filled the amphitheater, bodies adapted to gravity fields, pressure envelopes, and atmospheres tailored to their biology. Predators lounged beside prey, ancient empires beside client species, all watching the lone human in the center of the floor like a curiosity that had wandered into traffic. Rourke looked unimpressed. He wore a dark civilian coat, the kind Earth diplomats favored when they wanted to appear unthreatening. No insignia. No medals. No visible implants. Just an old man with gray creeping into his beard and eyes that had the unpleasant habit of measuring things. The prosecutor, Varkin, six-limbed, plated in ceremonial chitin, clicked its mandibles sharply. "Ambassador Elias Rourke of Sol 3, it intoned, voice amplified across the chamber. You stand accused of violating galactic accords by resisting lawful annexation, destruction of recognized sovereign fleets, and instigation of asymmetric warfare across protected trade lanes." Rourke nodded politely. "Sounds about right." Murmurs rippled. The prosecutor stiffened. "You admit guilt?" "I admit you attacked our colonies," Rourke said. "You bombed civilian habitats. You classified our resistance as piracy to avoid declaring war. And when we defended ourselves, you called it terrorism." A counselor from the Alothi Combine leaned forward, frilled crest flaring. "Your species was offered lenient terms. Tribute. Forced labor quotas. Military occupation," Rourke replied. "You have an interesting definition of lenient." The prosecutor gestured, and holograms bloomed into existence above the floor. Burning stations. Hull breaches. Alien warships torn apart by kinetic impacts. Dead Varkin soldiers floating in vacuum. "Evidence," the prosecutor said coldly. "Your fleets destroyed ours." Rourke looked up at the images. His jaw tightened, just a fraction. "Yes," he said. "We did. You were warned not to escalate," the prosecutor snapped. Rourke's gaze lifted to the council benches. "You warned us the way a mugger warns you before pulling a knife." That earned laughter from a few younger species. Not from the old ones. The prosecutor's mandibles flexed. "Humanity was deemed a minor power. A regional nuisance. Your refusal has cost the lives of over 4 million sentients." Rourke folded his hands behind his back. "You should have stayed out of our home system." A ripple of irritation spread through the chamber. "Your home?" a Threx counselor scoffed. "You occupy a single yellow star on the fringe of civilized space." Rourke smiled thinly. "And yet here we are." The prosecutor's voice hardened. "This assembly will now determine whether humanity is permitted to continue existing." The silence returned. It was heavy this time. Expectant. Rourke felt it settle on his shoulders like an old coat. He had stood in worse places: bunkers under bombardment, courtrooms rigged with explosives, hospital corridors after bad news, but this was new. An entire galaxy weighing his species like a faulty component. He reached into his coat. Security fields flared instantly. Weapons locks chirped. Dozens of guards raised bioplasma rifles. Rourke slowly withdrew a small black device and placed it on the polished floor. "It's not a weapon," he said mildly. The prosecutor did not relax. "Explain." "It's a recorder," Rourke said. "Broadcasting live. To Earth. To the colonies. To the fleets already moving, though the council didn't know that yet." The prosecutor made a sound that translators struggled to render. "You think your people will be swayed by watching you die?" Rourke looked up again, eyes sweeping the chamber. "No," he said. "I think they deserve to hear the truth." A council elder, ancient even by galactic standards, leaned forward in its gravity cradle. Human, it rumbled. Your species could have survived under our protection. Rourke's expression changed then. The humor drained away, leaving something colder. Protection, he repeated softly. You call orbital bombardment protection. You call taking our children to educational facilities protection. He took a breath. You didn't study our history, he continued. If you had, you'd know humans are very familiar with empires that promise order. The prosecutor slammed a limb down. Enough. The council will. Rourke raised his voice for the first time. Stop attacking us. The translators sharpened the words, stripped them of ambiguity. The chamber went still. Rourke stood straighter, age dropping from him like a discarded mask. Stop attacking us, he repeated. Or we stop pretending to be courteous. Laughter broke out, sharp, mocking, confident. A warlord from the Krell ascendancy bared its teeth. You threaten us? Here? Alone? Rourke met its gaze. I'm not threatening you. I'm informing you. The recorder's indicator light flicked from amber to red. Everything you've done to us, Rourke said, voice steady. We did not respond in kind. We didn't glass your worlds. We didn't collapse your suns. We didn't target your food chains. The prosecutor leaned close. Because you can't. Rourke smiled again. It wasn't friendly. No, he said. Because we were hoping you'd stop. A chill crept through the chamber, subtle but real. You think this is restraint? Rourke continued. This, our raids, our ambushes, our terrorism? This is us being polite. This is us knocking instead of kicking the door in. The elder shifted uneasily. You overestimate yourselves. Rourke nodded. That's what everyone says. Right up until they don't. The prosecutor straightened. The council has heard enough. By unanimous preliminary consensus, humanity is declared a hostile non-compliant species. Sentence. Rourke exhaled slowly. Then listen carefully, he said, turning slightly so the recorder would catch every word. You attacked our home. You killed civilians because it was efficient. You assumed we'd fold because smaller things usually do. He looked directly into the nearest camera drone. We will not. The prosecutor's voice rang out. Sentence, immediate execution. All human territories are hereby designated for reclamation by force. Guards advanced. Rourke didn't resist. Didn't plead. As energy fields crackled around him, he spoke one last time. This was the warning, he said quietly. The next message won't be words. The execution was swift. Public. Final. Applause followed, polite and restrained. The recorder kept broadcasting. And far away, in the dark between stars, human fleets altered course. The galaxy expected screaming. That was how executions usually worked, panic, thrashing, final pleas meant to remind everyone watching that resistance was pointless. The footage of Elias Rourke's death circulated for days across galactic networks, annotated by pundits and strategists. Most agreed on one thing. Humanity would break. Earth did not scream. Earth went quiet. For 72 standard hours, no human transmission left Sol. Trade relays went unanswered. Colonial beacons blinked to passive mode. To the Council, it looked like shock. Grief. Disorganization. To human fleets, it was a timer. Admiral Petra Ionescu stood on the bridge of the UNS Iron Calamity, watching a wall of red countdown numbers bleed toward zero. The ship itself was an old thing, originally a bulk hauler before the wars, its hull layered with patchwork armor and weapon mounts that would make any respectable galactic engineer cringe. She liked it that way. Final confirmations? She asked. A comms officer nodded. All civilian corridors cleared. Black boxes seated. Ghost protocols active. A younger tactical officer hesitated. Ma'am, the Varkan home system is still listed as a non-combatant core world. Ionescu didn't look at him. They executed a diplomat under a false flag of legality. That makes them a combatant culture. The timer hit zero. Begin Phase 1, she said. No ships fired. No missiles launched. Across the Varkan home system, things simply stopped working. Navigation satellites drifted off alignment by fractions of degrees, enough to make jump calculations suicidal. Defense grids desynced, their targeting algorithms arguing with time itself. The planetary AI, a construct that had managed climate, agriculture, and orbital traffic for 600 cycles, encountered a recursive paradox buried deep in its prediction models. It tried to resolve it. Then it erased its own core. Within minutes, the Varkan capital lost its sky. Freighters collided in orbit. Stations spun helplessly. Warships powered up weapons they could no longer aim. What is happening? A Varkan commander screamed into a dead calm channel. Humanity answered everywhere at once. The footage of Rourke's final address flooded every hack display, every public forum, every military console still capable of showing video. You mistake politeness for weakness, his voice said calmly. Courtesy for submission. The Varkan High Command ordered all fleets to mobilize. That was when the humans arrived. Not in formation. Not with banners or identification codes. They came out of shadowed vectors, micro jumps that bled radiation, tearing ships half into real space before snapping them back. Converted mining barges slammed through hulls at relativistic speeds. Hospital ships, clearly marked, clearly visible, opened up to disgorge armored boarding teams. A Varkan gunner froze as a human marine stepped through a breach, visor cracked, armor scorched, shotgun in hand. You're not supposed to be here. The alien stammered. The marine tilted his head. Funny. We were thinking the same thing. The Battle of Karset Station lasted 11 minutes. Human boarding doctrine was brutally intimate. No standoff weapons. No negotiations. Flash, breach, clear. Marines fought like men who had grown up arguing with their own governments, and had learned not to wait for permission. They took control rooms, databanks, food stores. Then they left. Karset drifted in orbit, intact but leaderless, its command staff zip-tied and breathing. On the surface of the Varkan homeworld, panic spread faster than fire. With logistics frozen and orbital traffic in chaos, entire continents realized how thin their safety margins truly were. Then the message appeared. Not broadcast. Carved. Chunks of tungsten slammed into the planet's ring system with precise timing, etching letters kilometers tall as debris spread into a visible band. Courtesy has expired. The Galactic Assembly convened in emergency session. Delegates shouted. Old rivals clutched each other in fear. The prosecutor species that had demanded Rourke's execution now begged for intervention. How did they do this? One counselor demanded. They are outnumbered 1,000 to 1. A military analyst answered quietly. They aren't fighting us. They're fighting systems. As if to prove the point, reports poured in. Human cyber units destabilizing trade algorithms. Retired soldiers resurfacing as private security consultants. On alien worlds, arming dissidents, training militias, vanishing. Entire client species refusing to pay tribute, citing newly leaked evidence of council corruption. Humanity was not conquering territory. They were pulling threads. Admiral Ionescu watched the chaos unfold from deep space. She listened as the last Varkan fleet limped away from Sol-adjacent routes, blind and burning. A comms officer looked up. Ma'am. We're receiving an open-channel transmission. Galactic Assembly priority. Ionescu considered it, then nodded. Put it through. A trembling alien face filled the screen. What do you want? Ionescu leaned back in her chair. For you to remember, she said, that we warned you. She cut the channel. Behind her, the Iron Calamity adjusted course, vanishing into dark space, leaving behind a lesson the galaxy would never forget. Fear unified the Galactic Assembly the way nothing else ever had. Ancient grudges were set aside. Border wars paused mid-battle. 5 major empires, some of them enemies for millennia, signed a joint resolution in less than an hour. Humanity was no longer a nuisance. It was a contagion. The vote was unanimous. Total extermination authority granted. The combined armada that formed was the largest military force the galaxy had assembled since the Age of Cinders. Millions of warships gathered in layered formations, planet crackers at the core, relic weapons humming with power older than Earth's oceans. Their destination was Sol. They expected defiance. They expected a final stand. What they found instead was emptiness. No human fleets massed at the system edge. No challenge broadcast. No dramatic last words. The Sol jump perimeter was quiet enough to feel wrong. "Scan again," barked Supreme Admiral Cothrex of the Krell Ascendancy. The sensors came back clean. Earth orbited its sun peacefully. Mars glinted red. The gas giants traced their ancient paths. "Where are they hiding?" a subordinate asked. Cothrex's frills twitched. "They cannot hide from this." The armada advanced. That was when the first ship vanished. No explosion. No debris. One moment it was there, an Elathi dread platform bristling with spinal cannons. The next it simply ceased to exist, its mass replaced by a ripple in spacetime. Alarm screamed. "What weapon was that?" someone shouted. The answer came too late. Human ships appeared inside the formation, not through conventional jumps but through violent micro-transitions that tore reality like fabric. They didn't stay long enough to be targeted. They fired once, precise, surgical, and vanished again. Logistics ships went first. Fuel carriers imploded. Ammo barges detonated. Repair tenders disappeared into folded space. Then command nodes. Flagships found their sensor data lagging by milliseconds, just enough to make coordination impossible. Orders contradicted each other. Formations tangled. A human transmission cut through the chaos, crisp and infuriatingly calm. "This is Admiral Petra Ionescu of the United Nations Navy. You are operating within a human-designated kill lattice." Laughter broke out on several channels. "You are outnumbered," Cothrex snarled. "Surrender your system." Ionescu's reply was almost bored. "We noticed." Then the system itself turned hostile. Asteroids, previously mapped, harmless, ignited as internal drives activated. Thousands of them. Mining rocks converted into autonomous kinetic weapons, accelerating to fractions of light speed. Defense grids hidden inside moons came online, firing beams that bent gravity instead of light. The Armada tried to regroup. Space refused to cooperate. Human engineers had spent decades studying orbital mechanics, three-body problems, and the art of weaponizing inevitability. Gravity wells shifted. Safe corridors collapsed. Ships slammed into each other, as their predicted paths betrayed them. "Fall back!" Cothrex roared. Too late. Human boarding craft punched through hulls with magnetic harpoons. Not en masse, surgically. Targeting communication hubs, reactor rooms, command decks. On the bridge of a shattered Krell battleship, a human in worn armor stepped over bodies toward the Admiral's throne. Cothrex hissed, blood frothing. "You cannot win this war." The human removed his helmet, revealing a scarred face and tired eyes. "We're not trying to," he said. "We're ending it." Across the galaxy, the war turned inside out. Human intelligence dumps, decades of patient infiltration, went public. Proof of council-engineered famines. Fabricated wars. Entire species kept technologically dependent on purpose. On dozens of worlds, riots erupted. Client states refused to pay tribute. Soldiers mutinied. Old rulers were dragged from palaces by their own people. A panicked counselor demanded over open channel, "Why are you doing this? You could rule us." Ionescu's response was broadcast everywhere. "Rule you?" she said. "We tried being ruled. Didn't like it." The Armada broke. Some ships fled. Others surrendered. Many never made it out of Sol's gravity well. And then, when victory was within reach, human ships disengaged. They did not pursue. They did not annihilate the retreating fleets. They let them go. The silence that followed was worse than any weapon. In the ruins of their greatest military failure, the surviving empires finally understood the truth Elias Rourke had tried to give them. Humanity wasn't fighting for dominance. They were fighting for memory. And the galaxy would never forget this lesson. Years later, the Galactic Assembly reconvened. It was smaller. Far quieter. Delegates who had once snorted at Earth's feeble fleets now hovered nervously in gravity cradles, their crests and antennae twitching at every human movement. The seat reserved for humanity was empty, except for one woman standing in front of it, hands folded casually, face calm. Maya Rourke, daughter of the late Elias Rourke, carried the weight of her father's legacy with effortless authority. She was dressed in plain civilian clothing, no medals, no weapons, no sign that she commanded a species that had reduced 5 empires to scrambling ruins. Yet every eye in the chamber felt her power, silent but absolute. "We are not joining your assembly," she said, voice steady, echoing through the grand hall. "We do not want your titles. We do not want your tribute. We do not want your protection." A nervous counselor from the Threx Dominion whispered to its neighbor, "Do you think she will really stop them?" Maya's gaze swept the chamber, locking briefly with the trembling prosecutor. "We want one thing." The room held its collective breath. "Respect. Distance. And this clause," she continued, gesturing toward a floating display above the assembly floor. It read, "Any unprovoked attack on humanity will be met with disproportionate response. Human definitions apply." A nervous laugh rippled through the room. "You would destroy us all?" someone murmured. Maya shook her head slowly, almost pityingly. "No," she said. "That would be easy. We'd let you live with what you've lost." Her words sank into the delegates like gravity wells. Some reeled. Some wept. Some pretended to scoff but couldn't hide the fear. The treaty was signed unanimously. Humanity did not gloat. They did not demand homage. They simply left, the record of their power hanging over the galaxy like an unspoken threat. As she exited the chamber, a junior diplomat approached, voice tentative. "Do you think they learned their lesson?" Maya looked up at the stars beyond the assembly windows, silent for a moment. Then she said softly but firmly, "They learned the first one. That humans aren't nice because we're weak." She paused, a faint smile tugging at the corner of her lips. "We're nice because it's exhausting not to be." Across the galaxy, old human warships returned to civilian service. Marines retired. Farmers planted crops on reclaimed colonies. Scientists rebuilt infrastructure. Life resumed with eerie normality. But the weapons stayed. Hidden, sleeping, waiting. Calculations laid decades in advance, contingency upon contingency, ready if the galaxy ever forgot that courtesy has limits. And somewhere in deep space, whenever young species debated attacking the quiet blue world at the edge of known space, elders whispered warnings to the next generation. "Don't. Humanity warned us once. They never bluffed twice." And the universe remembered. The humans were done being polite. For now. But courtesy had expired.